you know, anyone who has read history and been involved in government knows that it's really not possible to predict the length of war, the cost of war, or the number of casualties. And one with any experience in those areas doesn't even try to, because war is an uncertain thing. And we do know that Saddam Hussein killed literally hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, invaded Kuwait, was in a long war with Iran, and used chemical weapons both on his enemies as well as his own people. It was a terribly vicious regime, and the world's better off that he's not there. I think it was one of the most repressive, vicious regimes on the face of the earth. The decisions that were made on troop levels were made with the president and with the combatant commanders and the commanders on the ground. They were discussed extensively. I certainly agreed with the decisions that were made. I should also add that the neighboring countries were quite strong in their views, that they wanted the United States and coalition forces to not be heavy and to be there not as long as they might have feared. By way of background, it's useful to remember that in the Clinton administration, the Congress, Democratic-controlled Congress, overwhelmingly passed a regime change legislation, an act, and President Clinton signed it, that the Iraqis were shooting at British aircraft and U.S. aircraft almost daily, over 2,000 times, as our aircraft patrolled the northern and southern no-fly zones of Iraq in support of the UN resolutions. That Iraq had resisted some 17 UN resolutions. And there was a long, oh goodness, many years where the United States had talked about regime change in that country, and I would add with good reason. There's a lot of confusion where the CIA program, which dealt with a very few, very high-value detainees, and the military program, which dealt with thousands of detainees that were picked up in Afghanistan and Iraq, those two got conflated in a way. And, you know, if you ask somebody, gee, did the Department of Defense waterboard people at Guantanamo, many people would say yes, and of course the answer is no. The Department of Defense did not engage in those kinds of activities, and the Central Intelligence Agency did, with the express permission of the President and the Department of Justice. You know, I wasn't involved in waterboarding, and it's not for me to judge, but I think that the people in the Central Intelligence Agency who engaged in waterboarding, of 3 people is my understanding. As I say, I wasn't involved, but with 3 people, and only after the President approved it, and only after the Department of Justice approved it, that was their decision, and they were honorable people. The fact that we decided we would not do that in the Department of Defense reflected the fact that we were not organized, trained, or equipped to do anything like that. Well, the British forces are terrific. They clearly rank among the very, very best in the world. And the United States has worked closely with your forces and cross-trained with your forces for so many years to our benefit, and I think to the world's benefit. My hope is that the British people will decide that they're willing to make reasonable investments in defense, consistent with their other priorities, and that we'll be able to continue to have a very close military-to-military relationship.
I mean, looking at what's happening now, do you think we're cutting too far?
Well, I've been working on my book. I've not dug into your budget carefully, but I think the British people have a good center of gravity, and they'll make the right decisions over time.